U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that she was wrong about inflation. The Treasury Secretary originally said the inflation was only transitory as the nation moved past the pandemic and fought through supply chain issues. However, yesterday, Yellen told CNN that she recognizes the inflation America is facing is not temporary. And joining me now to discuss is Bob Nugent, research fellow at the Catholic University of America. Bob, welcome back. Great to see you. As just mentioned, Treasury Secretary says inflation, well, it's going to be a long-term problem. Meanwhile, President Biden wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about his plan to tackle inflation, which includes fixing the supply chain and strengthening the nation's infrastructure. Your thoughts on that, and if and how that government-focused approach will provide relief for Americans, and how soon?
Well, thanks for having me, Tracy, and it's glad to join you again. In response to your question, I think it's helpful that we've seen a little humility among the experts. Certainly, expertise and the reputation of expertise has taken a hit in this era of inflation. In regards to President Biden's plan to address inflation, it's good that he's addressing it, but a top-down approach in which more government spending, more government programs contributes to the solution is really not addressing the problem, which is in the first place excessive stimulus that has fed a lot of additional resources, money into the economy, which is looking for a place to go, chasing fewer goods. So while there are some upsides, Fed independence being one of them, I'd say this top-down and bumper sticker heavy emphasis like the Housing Supply Action Plan is, again, I think, mistaking where the source of the solution lies, which is in a combination of private and public sector.
Yeah, and as you know, the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates in order to combat inflation. Let's talk about the purpose of that and also the downside.
Sure. Well, traditionally, when you have an overheated economy, when you have prices rising, when there are fewer goods and more dollars, one of the ways of dampening that kind of spending activity is to increase interest rates. And that has the effect of slowing down business growth. Unfortunately, that's a double-edged sword. While we have a labor market which is encouraging in terms of its being full and tight, that is also a contributor to inflationary pressures. So increasing interest rates is going to impact the ability of businesses, large and small, to execute effectively and increase the production, especially when we have these labor shortages, particularly at the lower ends of the economy.
Yeah, and Bob, there's been a lot of talk, as you know, about recession. Do you think that's where we're headed right now, and is there any way to prevent it if we are?
Right. And well, in the old economist turns out in the long term, we're all going to suffer. I don't think, although we're halfway through what looks like a recessionary period, we had the first quarter being a decline in GDP, and 2 successive quarters of GDP declines is what defines a recession. I don't think we're going there this year. But I share what is, I think, a consensus among many experts and economists that between now and 2023, we are likely to see, because of increased interest rates, increased inflation, and a very tight labor market, a continuing pattern of low or no growth, which eventually will lead to some kind of mild excess recession.
Yeah, a lot of us are feeling the pain at the pump. I mean, there's really no escaping that. And as we've heard from the Biden administration, they're really aiming to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. You know, most people would agree helping the environment is a good thing. But what impact is that having on consumers in the short term? What do you think?
Well, very, very little. I mean, we all face this. I mean, on the one side, I'm glad to see the labor market tight for entry level, because that means more opportunities for folks like my teenagers. On the other hand, in the gas stations and the grocery stores of the country, there is no escaping the fact that prices are up. And when you talk about, well, alternative fuels, is this a way to get us a short-term pain for a long-term solution? Unfortunately, it's a matter of trading one dependency for another, because the kinds of resources that go into electric vehicles and wind and solar arrays are very much controlled outside this country. So when we talk about getting away from dependencies, I'm not necessarily convinced that going to solar and wind are going to get us there.
Well, Bob, so much more we can talk about, but we're out of time. Thank you so much, as always, for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.